Today I wanted to make a video for someone who has been trying to learn to swim for a very long time, despite the fact that they've spent hours doing research and trying to follow all the available advice online. They still struggle. They might have even been to swimming lessons and the teacher wasn't able to communicate the information well enough for them to absorb it and use it effectively. Maybe that person can't afford a swimming teacher and tried on their own watching tutorials, and despite watching all of them, they still struggle. They just still can't get why they can stay afloat, or they get too tired to swim the whole length of the swimming pool, and why or what in terms of their technique is the problem. And as someone who learned by myself, I think I could help with that. And I decided to do this video as if I was speaking to a friend who I could advise about what to do. After several years of swimming myself, I can now say what things are the most important and what to spend the most time on and what things to pay attention to. So maybe that will unlock your swimming skill. Because really, I think there's only few little pieces of information that someone needs to unlock the ability to swim. It's not really a rocket science, and sometimes it could be a single piece of information that will be a massive breakthrough, and from that moment they will be able to just progress and improve and finally enjoy the time in the water. If you don't know who I am, my name is Alan Chi. I learned to swim at the age of 32 and it completely changed my life. Since then I've become really good at it. I gained a lifeguarding qualification and a swimming teaching qualification. Now I teach others, I give private lessons and teach on YouTube about water safety and give advice and tips on how to improve water confidence. The first thing I want to talk about is the environment that you're going to be learning in. If you are someone who have been learning in a big Olympic size swimming pool, one of those big boy 50-meter long swimming pools, it's a very particular type of environment. It's quite intense, it can be intimidating. Usually the water is quite deep, so you don't really have the room to practice comfortably, because you always have this in the back of your mind that there is a deep water nearby and you cannot go there. Also, the people that you have around are very driven and competitive. There's a lot of competitive swimmers around, and they might not be too pleasant to newbies and people who are learning. It's like with driving. If they see someone who is learning or someone who is really slow, they get pissed off and passive aggressive, and they make you feel that. And also it creates unnecessary pressure on you to perform. You also compare yourself with them, which is not very healthy and overall not a good place to be. So instead of learning in a swimming pool like this, which is a serious swimming pool, I advise you go somewhere else. If you can, I would like to invite you to do some research online and search for gyms and hotels around your area with small swimming pools. Ideally, you will want to find a place with shallow water everywhere in the pool and with a lifeguard on deck. Simply because despite the fact that the water is shallow enough for you to stand up at any stage and be comfortable, you always want to have someone who will be able to cover you in case you had a health emergency or if you blacked out. The swimming pool access in a gym or in a spa hotel will probably be a little bit spicier, probably be a little pricier, but it's going to be worth it. Why? Because the environment feels a lot different than a swimming pool where people race competitively. First of all, the water will be much warmer, and right from the get-go, that will make you feel better, because on top of being uncomfortable, simply putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, you will have to deal with the temperature of the water. And if it's really cold, it will be really difficult to push yourself to do something outside of your comfort zone if you're also cold. Secondly, what you could do is enjoy everything around that swimming pool to put yourself in a very comfortable and relaxed state. You could use sauna, so you're nice and hot, and when you enter the swimming pool, you cool off and you feel that enjoyable, pleasant feeling when you enter the water, rather than dread of going into the water and being cold. That's how I tricked my brain into feeling very nice in the water instead of dreading it. I just made myself so hot from sauna that I couldn't wait to go into the water, and eventually I tricked my brain to think that water is a really pleasant environment. You can also use jacuzzi and spa and whatever other facilities those places might provide, and that will make you want to come back. You'll not feel the pressure of being always swimming and always being in a hostile environment. You'll be in some place that is really enjoyable to be around, and that will in return encourage you to come back and practice some more. You can start very small. You could start by going to your jacuzzi first and then doing 5 or 10 minutes practice and then leave. And if you keep coming back, enjoying yourself more and more, you'll be more likely to practice more often. And I always repeat, it's probably better to practice 10, 20 minutes a day often rather than an hour once every week or 2 weeks or a month. You need a constant exposure to the water to feel comfortable and create a desire to come back. In terms of learning to swim in those little swimming pools, because the water is only up to your waist or your chest, whichever is going to be the case, you will be able to feel safe to try things that are tricky and maybe in the past you wouldn't want to try. Eventually, you will have to go to deep water and swim further distances. But the very beginning stages, you need to go and practice for a long time in a small pool before you can venture out further. And this is a perfect environment for that. For example, a 15-meter or even 25-meter swimming pool is plenty for someone like you who is learning and needs to make small steps, repeat the exercises a lot, and have the freedom to experiment without fearing for their life. In terms of going to deep water, I was building up my courage for a very long time. And one of the things that allowed me to do that is I didn't go to deep water too early. And instead, I was practicing in a shallow pool. However, I wanted to see how long can I stay afloat until I have to touch the bottom of the pool with my feet. And after a while, I was able to get comfortable enough swimming, spent 10, 15 minutes floating before I needed to touch the wall or the bottom of the pool. The hotel and gym swimming pools will be much quieter, there will be less people, most likely, and the facilities will probably be much better maintained and cleaner than most of the public swimming pools funded by the cities. The second thing I want to talk about is which stroke you should learn first. So just like me, you probably want to be able to swim front crawl, the freestyle, as soon as it's possible. One word of caution I want to give you is to be patient. because learning to swim freestyle is much more complex and takes much more time than most people think. And in my opinion, the first swimming stroke that someone should learn is elementary breaststroke. The reason for that is that the elementary breaststroke allows you to build enough comfort in the water so that if you then practice any other swim stroke and for some reason you get startled, you swallow some water and maybe injure yourself or get a cramp, you can always come back to this position in breaststroke and turn around, stop to rest or just to compose yourself. You can return to safety without using too much energy and bring yourself back to proper body position or composure to continue swimming further. So I know it sounds weird, but if you want to learn freestyle or front crawl, learn breaststroke first so that if you are struggling with something or if you make a mistake, you don't fight to stay on the surface of the water. If you decide to learn freestyle first, what will happen is you might be doing well going forward and making progress, but if for some reason you have to stop because somebody knocked you over or you bumped into something or somebody, you might find it difficult because you will need to turn around or change direction or do something else. And if you don't know any other stroke, you just know your front crawl, you don't know what to do. So I would encourage to start from the breaststroke first. And when you feel so comfortable in the water that moving around and staying on the surface is not a problem, that's when you can move on to learning front crawl and maybe backstroke and anything else. Another thing I want to say is that it's going to be very easy for you to compare yourself to other people, especially people who swim very well, people who have been swimming since they were a child, people who've been taught to swim by their parents, people who never had any fear of water and never had any trauma. They had everything they needed to learn to swim as a kid, and it doesn't even occur to them that someone might struggle with those things. They will be faster than you, they'll be fitter than you, and their technique will be better. They'll be able to go further distance, and they'll probably be quite frustrated with you being around them in the pool. And one thing that I have to say about that is that you have to build almost like a shield to protect yourself from that. Not only you cannot compare yourself to those people, but also you need to protect yourself from them and understand that you belong in a swimming pool and you have every right to be there and there's no pressure on you. You're there to learn and take as much time as you need. If it takes you more practice and more days and weeks and months to learn, then you take more days, months to learn. You don't have to impress anyone. You don't have to keep up with anyone. You just need to do it in your own time. My main message to people who are learning to swim is to enjoy it. Because a lot of competitive swimmers and even coaches and teachers, for some reason, they want to focus on speed and times. As soon as you start making progress and improve your technique, they still pull out their watches and they start measuring time and telling everybody how quick they are. And even if they don't, it's almost like a second nature for us to try to measure time, because there are stopwatches above the swimming pool. And I swim, for example, with my watch, and I was obsessed with time. And after a while, I thought to myself, why? Why am I so obsessed with time? It doesn't matter how fast I'm going. I just need to focus on learning first. It doesn't matter how fast I am. And once you optimize for joy, really having fun in the water, experimenting, going underwater, diving, and exploration, having fun. It really changes everything and then makes it easier to learn to swim. There are two pieces of equipment that I would say are invaluable in terms of learning to swim. They will make a huge difference for you, and you will see people not using those and making it harder for themselves to learn. And you know, they're not the most pleasant things to use and have in the water, but without them, it's really hard to learn. You can drop them eventually in the future, but at the very beginning, when you're learning, you need those two things. The thing number one is the swimming cap, which currently I don't need, as you can see. But in the past, when I had my hair, the fringe would go on my eyes and cover them, which obviously made it impossible to see. And one of the most important things when you're learning to swim is the ability to see. So get those hair out of the way so you don't have to, whenever you pop out of the water, you don't have to do this with your hair to make you see. You won't take hair out of the equation, just cover them up with that swimming cap. And I know it's uncomfortable. I remember being a kid and hating the rubber swimming caps. But if I was you, I would search for something that is maybe not made of rubber, but still use them to get those hair out of the way, that you don't have to worry about them and you can see freely. And the second thing I want to add to this will also make you see clearly and will make learning much easier is a pair of goggles. In the future, down the road, when you're going to the open water and you want to swim for fun and joy, you don't have to wear goggles. But for the sake of learning, goggles are indispensable simply because, first, you want to see what's underwater, you want to see where you're going, and it also helps when you're expelling air out of your lungs using your mouth or using your nose, because this is the technique to use in order to breathe properly while swimming. But if you don't have goggles, when you do that, the air bubbles will go to your eyes and it will limit your vision and it will be a bit uncomfortable. So in order to do so, you need to have a pair of goggles. I would choose quality goggles. They don't have to be crazy expensive, but you don't want to buy the cheapest goggles you can find, because what happens is they start leaking. And there is nothing more frustrating in the swimming pools than leaky goggles. It's really annoying when you have to stop every 5 minutes or even more and adjust them and get that water out of your goggles. It's really frustrating. So a good pair of goggles, for example, the ones I'm using cost £20. They are called Speedo Fuse and they work very well for me. I don't have any problems with them leaking. They also sit well in my sockets. You need to try them on, see if they sit well in your eye sockets, and they don't fog. Another frustrating thing with goggles is that they fog, and you can try using a product called a defogger, or some people use saliva, put a little bit of saliva onto the glass to make them fog less, because obviously you want to be able to see no matter what. So get yourself a good pair of goggles and a swimming cap to make sure you see where you're going and you don't get angry and upset that you have to deal with these things. Another thing that is important when you're learning to swim is knowing your body and improving your body mobility. So you don't have to be extremely fit to swim, and you don't have to be super strong and or be an athlete. Swimming doesn't really require much effort if you follow the correct technique and if you're relaxed. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot improve things by getting fitter or taking care of your body. One of the things that helps a lot is stretching, specifically stretching your Achilles and your ankles, getting your ankle mobility right. helps a lot because you will need to flex it quite often. And if it's nice and loose and flexible, you can actually extend the glide in your stroke and swim further with less effort. Also, making sure your body is stretched helps avoid cramps, because what is quite common is that when you are swimming often, you might be getting cramps in your legs. And to limit those cramps happening, you just simply need to move your body more. And if you move your body more, and if you know your body, if you stretch it and you know how far you can push it, you will be able to relax in the water more and again put less pressure on yourself. You will know that since you're not 18 anymore, you cannot perform certain actions. You will know that your shoulders can only withstand so much pressure. And that's important because maybe a coach that never had this problem, or they for some reason don't care about that, would put pressure on you to keep going and pushing hard and doing some exercises that are not for you. Once again, I always encourage less pressure on yourself and more enjoyment instead. And last thing I want to tell you about is something that became key for me. That one revelation really unlocked swimming for me, and I've noticed that it's usually left till the end for some reason. For me, the number one breakthrough was when I learned to breathe in the water properly. And if you go online, you will see a lot of contradictory advice or advice that is plain wrong. And because people are different, or they learn from different sources, or they just simply have a different opinion, nobody can really tell what should be done and what shouldn't. So I watched swimming tutorials for, at this point, thousands of hours. And in very few of them, they actually mentioned this. So if you want to avoid water going to your nose, which I absolutely hated, you need to have a technique to follow. If you want to turn your head to take a breath when you're swimming front crawl, you need a technique to follow. That piece of information is the fact that in the water, we breathe differently than how we breathe on land. On land, we breathe in with our nose and breathe out with our mouth. In the water, if you try to breathe through your nose, you're going to feel very unpleasant sensation and potentially harm your lungs. So you cannot do that. Instead, you breathe in with your mouth like this. And to get the air out of your lungs, you use your nostrils. So you just go. And you can do it explosively with one fast blow, or you can do it gradually with very slow, very gradual exhale. What this does is extend the time that you can spend with your face under the surface of the water. And if you learn to exhale the air for 10, 20, 30 seconds, which is possible, you can keep your face underwater for 10, 20, or 30 seconds. And then when you're ready, you get your head up and you get another breathe in. Now this requires practice. You can start by taking a breath every 5 seconds, but then extend it for longer. What you have to keep in mind is that the less air you have in your lungs, the more likely you will start sinking. So you never exhale all of the air that you have in your lungs, and you should take the next breath before you need it, before you're desperate for it. So don't wait until your lungs are empty and you start sinking. You do it before you need it. But practice on building it up and being able to do it for longer. I would compare it to meditation. As a matter of fact, when I finally got it and when it clicked, it became like meditation for me. Swimming became like meditation. And I was able to have this rhythm of breathing for many lengths of the pool at the time. That turned my swimming experience from a workout to a meditation session. And because of that, I was looking forward to coming back to the swimming pool all the time, because I wasn't caring about my times. I wasn't caring about anything else that much, the pressure and how fast I needed to be. I didn't care about people who were behind me or in front of me in the lane. All I cared about is the rhythm of breathing. Remember to do it long and gradually, because you don't want to hyperventilate. One of the most dangerous things that people can do in the swimming pool is to hyperventilate, where they breathe really fast. You do not want to hyperventilate because you'll pass out. You want to have a very slow and gradual, correct breathing. And if you have a nose clip and you only use your mouth to breathe out, then you don't have to care about water going into your nose at all. So that's my few tips to anyone who is still struggling to learn to swim. And hopefully that will somewhat help you overcome whatever challenge you are still having. And this will allow you the freedom and the encouragement to try again, and so that you don't give up on yourself and you will learn to swim relatively soon. If you do find this valuable, make sure you like this video and let me know in the comments what stood out for you specifically.